Hello dear friends, I finally had time to sit down and write a proper proposal regarding this appeal by the Ministry for Healthcare and Business, referring to the question, how should the COVID fund be spent? Allow me to say, first of all, I really do appreciate that kind of thinking here, because it's just a very, very good idea to sometimes ask the public for ideas and proposals. Maybe that inspires other ministries to do the same. So well done. So in response to that, I thought, you know what, I should sit down and write a proper proposal. And that's what I did. So in the first video I published some time ago, I gave a general idea. So in this video, I will basically go into detail. And after that, I will send off the proposal via email. To make a long story short, I believe there are two areas which are very, very important right now. And these are the areas where the COVID fund should be spent, according to my personal opinion. In fact, half should be spent on, let's say, the seeding of Gibraltar startups, and the other half should be spent on a higher degree of digital and more direct democracy. And I will come to all the details in that respect. Let me say, of course, it's not necessary to implement that proposal in all its entirety and in all details. So if some ideas are taken out of that, that's already great. Okay, it doesn't make the proposal any less valid if the government prefers to implement that in a slightly different manner. But I took the freedom to really work it out here, to give like a basis to work with. So allow me to say straight away, regarding Gibraltar startups, this topic is very, very relevant, because from a perspective of, let's say, an economist, it's always beneficial to attract foreign companies to Gibraltar. It's attractive to trade with other places. It's good to attract specialized workers from other countries and all of that. But it's also very, very important to make sure that local founders, entrepreneurs of new companies in Gibraltar, often young entrepreneurs, have a better chance of succeeding, and to offer them a proper framework and seeding, and I come to the details now, where their chance of success is higher, because ultimately that's where the real organic growth comes from. Think about it. If you have 10 startups, if even 6 or 7 of them fail, the ones who succeed, they have a chance of becoming very large companies in the future. And that leads to a whole set of consequences which are beneficial for the economy in Gibraltar, such as employing more people, reinvesting, expanding business activities, and all of these things. Needless to say, that's a long road, but it's good to focus on new companies and startups right now who have that kind of potential. And my proposal focuses on a seeding program, and I will explain you the details in a minute. So I propose that half of the COVID fund is spent on this initiative. I called it Gibraltar Startup Initiative. The other half, I believe, should be spent on the topic of digital and more direct democracy. So to make a long story short, we have to progress in that area. So apart from the fact that many young people expect more digital transparency, it's time that we do a step in the direction of a more direct democracy. I'm not saying that every single decision should be made via online polling. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm suggesting that a system is put in place where gradually the development is towards more direct democracy, where citizens can vote on certain topics via a new portal in the eGov system, for example, where policymakers are reporting to the public every 4 months or so on what projects they are working on. This could also be done online via a new portal, with a short video. Let's say every 4 months, every 6 months, all ministers give an update, what they are working on. If you would ask right now people on the street, what are all the ministers working on, the answers wouldn't be great. So you see, like, all these topics, they are relevant here. But again, I will now go into detail what could be done in this context. So I took the freedom to put together a precise plan for the implementation of those aspects. And needless to say, yeah, even if this proposal is not implemented in its entirety, yeah, or details are changed, I mean, that's fine. It doesn't make the proposal any less valid. Okay, so to summarize, that's what I suggest. So half of the fund should be spent on this new Gibraltar startup seeding initiative, and the other half should be spent on more digital, more direct democracy to bring everything up to date. Okay? So more digital governance, more digital economics, so to speak. Okay, so now let's go through these two parts. Okay? So maybe it's good that I've explained right at the beginning. Yeah. So when you talk about entrepreneurship in a society, that's a whole topic on its own. And I believe personally, generally speaking, it would do well for Gibraltar if there is more of an entrepreneurial culture, where people in general, they understand that it could be very, very beneficial for them and others to try to start local ventures. And it's very well known in this area. I mean, allow me to show you the numbers here in the appendix. It's very well known that most startups fail, okay? So normally 9 out of 10 startups fail. But as I said already, what happens is the ones who succeed, they often lead to disproportionate growth. And I should really explain something very clearly here. The focus of this initiative is not for the government to profit from this seeding activity, okay? Of course, if there's a net profit, fantastic, everybody's happy. But the focus should really be on the young entrepreneurs, all right? To enable them to get over those difficult phases, launching a venture, okay? Keeping their solvency up and having the chance to implement their strategies, create the services and to expand. You see? That's very important to understand. So we are not talking here about a project where the main objective is to achieve net profitability from the perspective of the government, who would then seed startups with the finances from the COVID fund. Also, so maybe I should explain. So this whole activity is well known in other economies. I mean, normally you have like venture capital funds, yeah, or private equity funds. These funds are specialized in investing in startups, okay, and they are very, very well aware of this Pareto principle I've described, yeah, that 80% of startups fail, and then the remaining 20%, for example, succeed and lead to disproportionate profits. You see, that's a very, very well-known principle. So the idea of this seeding initiative is kind of doing the same, just with a COVID fund. So providing seeding investments to local startups. I should also say straight away, focused on newer sectors. All right. So the idea is not to invest in bread and butter businesses, let's say. The reason is that these kind of companies, they are not really scalable most of the time. You see, of course, everybody can apply, but the focus should more be in the area of fintech, internet-based services, something which is like within the space of the new sectors we see, okay, like in the space of digital solutions, all these kind of things, because these areas are very scalable. They can become big. All right, so I should maybe explain that also right at the beginning. Secondly, so I wrote here there are at least 3 categories in terms of how long has the venture actually existed. Here, with the early stage equity investments, we talk about completely new ventures, yeah, who have been running for 0 or 3 years between that time period. Then the middle stage investments, where you have companies which are already up for 3 to 6 years, and then late stage for companies who are up for between 6 and 9 years. Of course, the longer a company has existed, the higher is the likelihood that it will succeed rather than fail. So that's something to take into account. That's why normally early stage investments are lower in terms of the amounts as compared to investments into companies which are slightly older, let's say. Now, in that context, I should also go into detail. Yeah. The time horizon of the investments themselves should be between 5 and 10 years. Okay, so it's really medium to long term. Needless to say, there needs to be a proper selection committee. Yeah, in the best case, it's made out of individuals who have experiences with investing and launching startups, as well as people from the government, something like that. And of course, the selection process for those seeding investments should be rather difficult in terms of the requirements, and I will explain to you now why. So it can all start with an online form, and then at some point a face-to-face presentation by the applicants. But there have to be high hurdles, okay? So why? Because the founders need to have an incentive to think whether the business model makes sense, whether it's scalable, and also in case they get rejected, they can of course apply again, yeah, for the next round. But then maybe they adjust their approach, they think really carefully about their service or product, and maybe they even adjust their strategies. You see, so the interaction is also very important. And by the way, as a footnote here, these are the things which increase the entrepreneurial thinking in society. Yeah, because think about it, if young people have these experiences, they have presented their business, they've maybe already made a pilot product or service, and they've tested it, and now they're in the process of improving it. You see, it's a whole learning process. The more we have these kind of opportunities for people to be in these situations where they have to pitch an idea, yeah, they have to try to attract investments and all of these things, the better. Because that will have an impact also culturally the more time passes, okay? Now, obviously, everybody can apply. Yeah, there shouldn't be high hurdles in terms of who can apply for that. As I said, more modern sectors would, of course, be preferred. And as I said, also, if people fail, of course, they can apply again. Now, I should explain content-wise. So, in the past, there has been an initiative by the government of, here, there it is, the Ministry of Business and Employment. Yeah, it was called Gibraltar Business Nurturing Scheme, and that's something completely different. Yeah, I'm not sure how this was actually implemented, but there companies could apply for small loans, yeah, up to £25,000 with a 5-year maturity. That's not what we're talking about here. Yeah, we are talking about equity investments, not loans. And allow me a little footnote here. You can see from these kind of policies that politics is dominated by people with legal backgrounds. Yeah, especially in Gibraltar, most politicians are lawyers by training and education, and that's why you see programs like that. This is not meant as a criticism. There's space for many approaches, but you see, it would be good to have a bit more input from, yeah, let's say like people who have like a perspective from entrepreneurship and who understand how it feels to be on the other side. Because think about it, why would a local entrepreneur take on a loan from the government, yeah, and then have a maturity and then have the risk of default, have that kind of pressure? It doesn't make much sense unless it's a small bread and butter business. What I'm talking about here in this proposal is different. We're talking about an actual equity investment by the government. Okay, we're talking also about bigger size in terms of the overall amounts. So maximum should be more £200,000 rather than £25,000. Of course, if there are many applicants, maybe the average seeding investment will be lower. No question about it. Now, in return for those equity investments, the government, of course, can take percentage ownership in those startups. Yeah. So that means that if there's a success and one day the company is in a position to pay a dividend, the government will earn that dividend on their respective shares. In most cases, it would be probably a good idea to have minority non-voting shares. That means the government is like a passive equity investor. Okay, and that enables the founders to have equity investments at their disposal, right, to run their operations and to have a better chance of success. Okay? So of course details can be worked out, and it should also, the committee should kind of be in a regular dialogue with the companies asking for the seeding investment, because there are many things which can be decided on the basis of discretion. Yeah, whether dividends are waived, if it helps the company, all these kind of things. Now, I also wrote, let's say we have a case where a startup is super successful. Then needless to say, if the company is in a position to buy back that equity stake, yeah, to buy back the shares the government bought at the beginning, it of course would be appropriate that the company buys back those shares with a profit on top. Yes, I mean that's common sense. Or maybe there's even like a partial buyback, yeah, where the company buys back a part of the shares from the government. Yeah, there are many ways of doing these things. But to make a long story short, we're not talking about those small business loans here, like this little program which existed before, okay? We are talking about proper equity investments. Sometimes the terms, okay, should be also customized. So maybe without even like any deadline, yeah, like it can be 5 years, like the equity investments as such do not mature like a loan, okay? So what happens? So the seeders, they don't have additional pressure. They actually have additional support and more finances to make their business work and grow. Okay, as simple as that. I don't understand why nobody thought about something like that before. It's vital. So it's time that we have a framework like this in place. Okay, other places like the US, Dubai, all these places, they have that already. Of course, the founders, they have to report in some way on a regular basis back to the committee. Again, maybe this can also be done by the eGov system, yeah, as a video, whatever. There are many ways of doing that. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. We do have some small ventures, and it would be great to give people, also young people, an incentive to come up with business plans, to create companies, to take the risk. One very important aspect to finish this topic off, and that also refers to an entrepreneurial culture, we have to take into account that companies and startups will fail. That's the nature of the game. That's the nature of the beast. So it's very important that in case of failure, there is no kind of punishment on those founders. Yeah, that's very important. Of course, at the same time, it's always encouraged that the founders take intelligent, calculated risks. Yeah, no one can predict the future, but the better prepared they are, the higher is the likelihood that they will actually succeed. But it's very important that founders who failed will even get another chance, okay, and they will not punished in any shape or form for the failure. All right? Because as I've described already, the Pareto principle holds pretty well when you look at all the data. Okay, so to summarize this first part, I really strongly believe this would be amazing. Personally, I would spend 50% of this COVID fund on this startup initiative. I would put such a framework in place, a committee, online forms, and then we would literally have like the opportunity for new founders to pitch via presentations, to get equity investments, and to use these to grow. And as I said before, so on a case-by-case basis, the deals can then be negotiated and adjusted, depending on the kind of business, the kind of service, the kind of product, the kind of setups, all of these things. Yeah? How many founders are working together. But in most cases, it would absolutely make sense to agree on an equity investment without maturity, yeah, a minority stake. The government gets shares in those startups, and the founders have a chance later on to buy back those shares and to pay a profit on top of that to the government, or they can also decide to pay out dividends, which then also go back to the government according to their stakes, etc. In some cases, it makes sense to define, okay, this should be the date in the future where a buyback should happen or a partial buyback. This needs to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Okay, so that's the first part. Yeah? The second part, so I called this Digital Direct Democracy Initiative. Maybe you find a better name. And there are basically 3 pillars in that area. Yeah, so now we're talking about governance and politics. So, allow me to explain. Digital transparency. I believe half of the COVID fund should be used to expand the eGov system we have, to add a new portal. And in this portal, where citizens have access, there are regular efforts to report, like by each minister. All the ministers who are in power and who are policymakers and are implementing projects, let's say every 4 to 6 months they should report on what they're working on. Yeah, what's their focus? They don't need to give details neither, but they could make a short update video, and this gets uploaded in the eGov portal, and citizens can see it if they want to. Yeah, that would be important. Also, it would be nice to have like a proper profiles of all the ministers as well as opposition members with their CVs, their experience and all that in the portal. That would be great. Now, the bigger topics, more direct democracy. So again, I'm not saying that we are switching to a system of complete direct democracy. That's not what I'm saying. The idea here is to gradually increase the directness of democracy. Yeah? So, and at the beginning, the government should have discretion as well regarding, like which of those decisions should actually be placed in the online poll. So in terms of implementation, that's not difficult at all to implement. It could easily be done via online polls under the eGov system. A footnote here, there need to be proper checks in place. There needs to be a system where an independent body is checking that there is no wrongdoing in terms of online polling. This needs to be very solid. We can't have any manipulation or hacking in that context. That's obvious. I don't think I wrote it in here, but I mean that's obvious. But it would be easy in principle, to actually implement at least sometimes online polling via the eGov system for citizens. And generally speaking, there could be like 3 categories of decisions. Let's say very, very important ones, high relevance decisions. Like for example, laws regarding freedom of the press, historic decisions. And as a footnote here, it's not that Gibraltar has been completely representative. In the past, we had a referendum on the status of Gibraltar, on new laws regarding abortions, all these kinds of things. So it's not that Gibraltar's a complete representative democracy. There were some referendums in the past. But the idea is to formalize that a bit more, and to make it digital, so that certain decisions can be made by the people. Medium relevance decisions, let's say it's about, these are just examples, civil partnerships, tax changes, real estate tenders, all these kind of things. It would be thinkable to put them also into the online poll system for people to vote on. And then, of course, also low relevance decisions, any traffic arrangements, logistical things, etc. All right, so to make a long story short, the idea is to do the first step in the direction of a more direct democracy, which is also taking advantage of digital tools. And this could be the first step, and the government at this point should probably have discretion over what kind of decisions should be put for the online poll. Apart from that, it would be beautiful if in the eGov system there's a new portal where proposals like this here can be handed in digitally, so that citizens always have a chance to come up with ideas. I think that would be a great idea. Okay, so this topic here, I think it is relevant. The fact is, Chip is a small place in terms of the population number, in terms of the territory, so sometimes people have to wear different hats. There are family connections, there are all kinds of things which can potentially create conflicts of interest. So I believe it would be very, very beneficial for Gibraltar that all ministers as well as members of the opposition actually disclose their shareholdings and beneficial ownership again under the eGov system in a database, yeah, for citizens to see. So it literally means if politicians have shares in certain companies and ventures, they should of course disclose it so that people are aware of that, because sometimes that can impact the decision-making process. And that's not something completely out of the ordinary. I think that's a very, very reasonable idea. So that could create more transparency, yeah, so that there is like a profile for each person in public office, and the profile shows respective shareholdings, whether these are private or public, yeah, and also beneficial ownerships, directorships, indirect means of income, yeah, so that there's more transparency regarding, okay, what could be potential financial incentives for that person. That's very, very relevant. So as you can see, if we would take 50% of the COVID fund and invest it into this kind of initiative, and then improve aspects of these three pillars, then we would succeed in making Gibraltar more transparent, more digital, and more democratic. As simple as that. And of course, these things, they don't happen from one day to the other. They take time. It's a process, but we have to start somewhere. I believe now it's a great time to start. Yeah. To bring Gibraltar up to speed, to make it very, very modern, to acknowledge the fact that especially the younger people, the younger generation, they expect a digital presence. Yeah, they want to have access to information on the website, yeah, like the eGov system, or maybe even via app and all these kind of things. Yeah, that should be really the vision. And I think it would be great if Jib would take a step towards that and would not lag behind. Because it's predictable, isn't it? This will happen in all kinds of countries now. We will move more and more towards a digital system like that. And now is the time to do it, to start it, all right, to create more transparency, and to have a database where all this information here is accessible easily for citizens. I'm sure you can find out a lot of information by doing a lot of research. Nobody will do research, all right? So we need to acknowledge the expectation from the public to have information easily available at the fingertips. As simple as that. And it's good for Chip as a whole. Okay, so to summarize, this is what I believe would be a great idea in terms of spending the COVID fund. Those two areas, as I said, the implementation can be adjusted. It doesn't need to be exactly like I've shown here. Of course, there are many ways of doing things and all of that. But I'm very confident that these are two very, very relevant areas. I'm confident that either way, these things will be implemented at some point. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years. Yeah, but I'm very confident that someone at some point will implement these steps, because it's just what's needed. And if we now use these additional funds to, on the one hand, have an upside in terms of the economy and to create organic growth, and to be up to date and to give new founders, new startups a better chance of becoming big companies, that would be fantastic. And in terms of digital politics, if we are able to use half of the fund to improve the current setup, the current framework, to expand the eGov system, that we have more, let's say, digital politics, okay, more digital democracy, where people actually can have an impact rather than just voting every 4 years, and are more involved. At least the ones who want to be involved, they're more involved in the decision-making process. I think that would be incredible. Other places have done that already, for example, Switzerland. And again, I'm not saying that we need to become a full direct democracy neither, but to increase the participation of people with the help of all these tools which we now have because of all these major developments in technology, would be the right thing to do, if you ask me. Anyways, I'm sure that either way you will at least incorporate some of those ideas, and I'm sure that in the end good decisions are made. I'm now sending this off. All the best.